This week on It's Clear as Mud.
Here's what you get tool-wise. And this is all you get. You get a sponge that you can stick in a can of rocks out there. You get a ball of clay and you stick on the edge of the can. Okay. You get some sort of a trimming tool, whether it's wood. You ignore this, you don't get to use that. But a trimming tool, you can cut off clay on the bottom and the side. I use a paring knife. I learned this when I apprenticed, and this is a Marguerite Wildenhain tool. It's a paring knife. Cut the handle off, cut the blade off, and it's a nice little tool, and it's easy to get in your hand, and it's not so big. That gets stuck in the clay. You get a needle tool. There we go, needle tool. And you get a rib, a metal rib or a plastic rib. The plastic one, you're going to need this one later. It's a kind of a quarter round or a third of a round. When we get to bowls, you're going to need that one. You don't need it right now. We'll just throw that in the can. But this is my favorite metal rib. It's a little kidney that I cut the end off of, and it's flat. That way you can get up into things without having that point. And that gets stuck in the clay. These things get bloody sharp. So if you're really sharp on the edges of this, take some sandpaper, sand it down, and get some of that sharpness off, because you'll cut yourself or stab yourself on your needle tool out there. You get a chamois. Chamois goes over the edge of the bucket, like so. You get a wooden rib. It could be square, it could be whatever it is, whatever wooden rib you have floating around. And speaking of floating around, it floats right in the top of the bucket. It lives there. You get a couple of sponges. One for throwing with, and the other for wiping your hands off with. You could also use a big natural sponge if you have one, or you could use a washcloth, but something to wipe your hands off with between throwings. So you'll need that. You're also going to need, probably going to need a ruler for note keeping and for understanding. You want your ruler to have millimeters. Inches isn't going to cut it in pottery, and we'll get into that another day. So how you're going to set this up is the last thing you get is you get a dirty towel. Now this towel has been used and washed and used and washed, but I wash it by hand, so it's got dust in it, little dust. It goes over your knee, like so, and your cutting wire goes over the top of that, and that's where that lives. And so that's everything you get. You get nothing more than that for this entire thing. That's all you get. So you got chamois, wooden rib. You have a trim tool, needle tool, and a metal rib, millimeter ruler, sponge on a stick, and your pointer. 2 sponges or a sponge to throw with. And I have a nice bat on here too, so I have a nice top surface to work with. So you got a good bat. That's all you get. If you'll notice over here, I've set some boards up with a couple of bags of clay on top of a couple of buckets. Just a temporary deal. But this is your wear board setup, and this is where you're going to be taking pottery off the top of the wheel and setting it over here. And you're going to fill those up. You're also going to need some plastic bags. I use drop cloth material, and I cut it into these so that I can stretch one of these over the top while I'm throwing, and that's what I would recommend you do. Stretch it over the top and then set your pieces on there, and then be able to cover the top of them up so that they don't get dried out, because you're going to be reprocessing this clay probably over and over and over again. So you need a selection of these, probably more than this, because your goal is going to be 100 of these deals, and that's a significant goal. First thing you're going to notice is that I'm throwing standing up, so things are a little bit different in my layout. So let's try and ignore that and utilize what I showed you in the last video. I want you to not forget all the things that you've learned up till now in pottery. I just don't want you to use them. I want to minimize this. I want to reduce this down to the basic elementals so that you're just doing as few things as possible, and you have just as few things as possible to keep track of. One of the things I don't want you having to keep track of are your tools. I want you to concentrate on what you're doing. So we have your tools in a specific spot. But I want you to remember the first time you rode a bicycle and you felt the balance of the bicycle. You didn't intellectually understand the balance. You knew you had to compensate left and right, and you'd probably been doing that for a while, but at some point you felt it. And then immediately there was understanding, and from that point forward, it was relatively easy to find it again. So that's what we're going to do here. There are 3 or 4 little basic drills here that you can practice and understand what they feel like. You maybe want to warm up them a couple of times before you start throwing cylinders, just to understand and remind yourself of what it is. So we're going to center this ball of clay. And I want you to notice that I'm throwing with a sponge. You don't have to throw with a sponge, but I do. And the reason I do is I started my throwing career on a kick wheel. And so I'm always controlling my water with the sponge and everything else. And so I don't even think about it. I have muscle memory of putting the sponge in the hand and using all my other tools. You don't have to do that. But I want you to use a sponge for this initial lesson. We're going to take this clay and we're going to flatten it out. Like so. And what I want you to do is I want you to take your sponge and push it on the side and push in towards the center. And you'll notice that the whole thing is going up automatically. And that's just pushing on the outside. So that's what you do on the outside. That's what's happening. I don't even have a hole on the inside. We haven't even opened this form up yet. I'm putting my sponge on the outside and I'm pushing in. And the whole thing is going up. Okay, that's one. So you can practice that over and over again and you can feel exactly what that feels like. Now, the second thing you want to practice is pinching and pulling up. And it's just that simple. I'm going to push it back down again so you can see it. You just pinch and pull up with 2 fingers. And it's easy to find where the other finger is on the outside of the pot because your fingers pretty much naturally do that on your left hand. Okay? Now we're going to collar this in. We're going to try the third thing. So the first one was pushing in, the second one is pinching and pulling up, and the third one is what it feels like from the outside with your sponge. So I'm going to collar this into a long column of clay. I'm going to cut it off so it stays in the camera. Put my needle tool back where it's supposed to be. And I'm going to take a stick. I got a dowel. Use the dowel on the end of your sponge if you want. I'm going to push that down to the bottom, and I'm going to try and center it a little bit. I'm going to push it in so it spins around inside that. Using my sponge again, understanding the pushing in and moving up with the sponge, the pushing in and moving up with the sponge. I'm not going to have my hand inside. I'm going to use the dowel. I'm going to take the sponge and I'm going to push in and pull up against the dowel. No, it's wobbly. I don't care about the wobble. I want you to feel it. You could be doing that with a knuckle if you wanted to. If you're a knuckle thrower, you'd probably be doing that with a knuckle just fine. If you're not a sponger, you don't want to be a sponger, that's going to be your choice here, is whether you sponge or knuckle. Some of you aren't going to be able to make that transition. So let's show what that looks like on the outside. Let's push this clay in from the outside with a knuckle. There it is. We're pushing it in with a knuckle. Now watch it come up. I'm not moving it. I'm not moving my right hand up. It's just coming up naturally. That's what's going on with the outside hand. But as the clay moves up, you're going to have to move your hand up because it's going to get taller. The left hand is pinching. So the left hand is going down to the bottom, pinching in, and whoops. Solve that problem by putting a little clay under the wheel head. The left hand is just pinching. So all it's doing is pinching and pulling up. Okay? So those are two fairly simple maneuvers to understand. Pushing in the right hand, pinching and pulling up. I use my middle finger, pinching and pulling up with the left hand. The reason I use my middle finger, it gets down in there further. Now here's where we marry the two together, and everybody wants to give you complicated stuff on this. All I want you to do is put your two thumbs together, like so. Get in the camera. Two thumbs together like so. If you put your two thumbs together like so, your finger on the outside can push against your finger on the inside, and your thumb can pinch against the finger on the inside, and you can go in and up. You never want to go over the top. So you might as well start practicing that now. Although it's not the end of the world if you do, I don't want you to do that if you can avoid it. So the whole idea of this procedure is to practice exactly those movements, to do exactly those movements in throwing the ball. So I'm going to cut this off, and we'll start throwing the cylinder. Okay, so I've set up my pointer here, and it's 115 millimeters off the top of the wheel head, and it's 95 inches round. You're going to find that easier to set up when you have your first ball in place. So you may end up cutting down to that level or whatever. I want you to let go of throwing thin pottery here, okay? So at that, you have some clay to work with, and so you don't need to concentrate on being thin right now. You don't even really need to concentrate on having the walls be even right now. All you have to concentrate in is on pushing in and pulling up. So you're going to center the ball. I'm coning up. If you folks want to cone, you can cone. Okay, and I'm going to show you a little trick here. For those of you that are having a hard time centering, and it's another reason for using a sponge. So you can see we're a little out around there. We'll get really out around. So I'm out around. I'm going to open this up anyway. I'm going to open it up with my middle finger. And you leave enough clay on the bottom, leave 4 millimeters on the bottom, and pull it out. Now, basically, I'm just pinching. This hand is just doing what this hand does. It's controlling the water. It's keeping things in check. Now, here's the secret for you. And you're going to do this a lot in making pottery. You're going to get the wobble out of your rim, and you're going to collar up, and you're going to fix the wobble and the collar up. You can recenter here. So I'm going to recenter right now and get it spinning nicely. That's the open. Clean my sponge. I'm going to take my rib tool, my wooden rib right now, and I'm going to go in here and flatten up the side, and I'm going to clean up the bottom. I'm going to get rid of any rings or little nipples that are down in there that I don't like, because I don't like that stuff sticking out of the bottom of my pot. And I'm putting my rib right back in the water. So here's what we're going to do. And I'm going to do this a couple of times so you can see it. We're going to push in with this hand. We're putting the sponge over the top of that. If you're using a knuckle, I will show you that in the next round, okay? pushing in with your left hand, and we're gonna follow this clay up as we go in, and we're pinching with our right hand, and we're pinching with our left hand. We're marrying the two at the thumb, and we're going in with one pull. Now, most everything there happened in the left hand. Most everything there that went on is the pinch. Okay? So now we're going to do that again. We're going to go in, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom, we're going to pinch in, we're marrying our thumbs together, we're pinching in, and we're pulling up. That's our second pull. Now we get a rib pull. We're going to go in. Now, the rib is an interesting deal. Rib has to be a bit of an angle. If you have a rib and you bring it in perpendicular like that, it's going to chatter. If you bring it at an angle, it's going to drag. So that's what we're going to do with this rib. We're going to bring it at an angle. And you notice right now I've got the whole rib touching everything. But if I turn the rib at an angle again, I'm only touching right in the middle of the rib. I'm touching right around here. This is just scraping off the bottom. So I'm going to turn that. I'm going to go down to the bottom, pick up the clay that's on the bottom, turn my rib a little bit, and pull it up. Now you see I'm almost at my pointer now, so I'm not going very far. And that's the final deal. Now, there's lots of cleanup you could do on this. You could trim this to match exactly. I don't want you to do that yet. I want you to throw to the pointer. You can go in the bottom now and get the moisture out of the bottom. You don't want that down there, even if you're reprocessing the pot. You can go down to the bottom and trim off some of the clay here and get a cleaner ring. And the other thing you could do if you wanted to is you can do a slight rib pull or a scrape with this and get some of the moisture off of there. And that'll make it easier to pick up. And then, of course, chamois the top. So I'm going to go through this a couple more times, and I'm going to do it quickly. But you're going to get this in just a minute. So now we're going to cut this off. We're going to get a little towel on our hand, and we're going to pick this pot up with a 6-point hole. You can see 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everything's backwards in this camera. And you could also do it like this if you wanted to. You could hook it on this side and pick it up like so. I like the 6-part hole on something this big. I pop the back of it off first. I get a little, and then set it off to the side. Okay, so I'm going to show you one now with a knuckle pull. I haven't done a knuckle pull in a long time, so we're going to see how this works. It may not be very pretty. Open it up. And see, and I want to recenter out here, so now I'm goalposting. That's what a goalpost looks like. You know, you have your 2 uprights and a T across it. So now I'm going to come in with my fingers pinching and my knuckle and go up. Now see, for me, I don't throw like that. I got habits, and that's not very coordinated for me. Knuckle pull again. Not going over the top. Now we're going to do our 3rd pull. Go down with the rib. And throw to the form. Now you see, I didn't quite make it. I didn't quite make it to the needle tool. I got a 1/4 of an inch there. That's okay. I don't want you to fix it. I don't want you to do a 4th pull. I don't want you to mess around with it. I want you to cut it off and set it on the board and quickly move on to the next one and try and get it in the next pull. Continue to try and do the next thing. Don't keep rehearsing the wrong thing and trying to make it happen. So now we're going to cut it off We're going to get a little toweling, and we're going to set it off to the side. You're not going to see me do too many more knuckle pulls. Okay, we'll try this. And I'm not going to narrate this time, I'm just going to do it. Yeah, I'll narrate a little bit. I'll give you the 1, 2, and 3. 1, center. 2, open up with the middle finger, controlling your water with the sponge. And I open up a little bit wider because I'm going to push it in. Recenter it out here. Clean up the center, the inside with the rib. If you're concerned about the bottom, I'll just take an aside. If you're concerned about the bottom, now's the time to put your finger on the end of a needle tool, stick it down there, and see how much. I have about 4 millimeters, and that's about what I want. So I'm not going to do a lot of trimming on this. Okay, pinching on the inside, sponge on the outside. Sponge hand is pushing in. I'm marrying my knuckles or marrying my fingers together here, and I'm pinching and pushing in at the same time. A little volcano shape, a little conical shape, not going over the top. A little water. Second one. See, I'm right at that needle tool pointer. I'm probably going to go beyond it this time if I really give it a good rib pull. And I got stuff and I don't want you doing it. You see what happens? I put my other tools where they're not supposed to be, and I'm fighting them. The only thing that's in this water bucket is the rib. Yep, it's a little bit up. I'm 1/8 of an inch above the top. Chamois it off. Take your sponge and clean it out. Put your sponge back where it's supposed to be this time. Take your knife tool, trim off a little of the excess clay on the bottom. Cut it off with the wire. Clean your hands with the sponge, which is something I haven't said before, but your second sponge is to clean your hands with. We want to get your hands clean so you don't get all that junk all over your towel. Get a little dry powder from the towel, pop it on the back, set it aside. Open it up, your finger, pull it out. Clean the bottom. Recenter it out here if you need to. Pushing in with the right hand and pinching with the left hand. Go up. Second pull, pinching in with the left hand. Sponging with the right hand, go up, up and in. Little goal posting here, gonna smooth out my top. Cheating. See, I got tons of habits. It's gonna be hard for you guys too, because you got tons of habits. And not all of them are good. Run a little water down the side, go down and pick up that clay off the bottom. And I'm pulling right now for getting that to that pointer. Just like so, right there. That's exactly what I wanted to have happen. Clean the bottom out of the water out of the bottom. A little chamois on the top. Clean a little excess clay off the bottom. Put my needle tool, my knife tool back where it's supposed to be. Take my sponge, wipe my hands off. Get my hands clean. Set it off. little dry on the towel. 6-point hold. There we go, 6 points. 1, 2, yeah, heck with it. And pick it up, set it aside. Okay, so you're not worrying about thickness. You don't want it to be thin. You're not worrying about getting it thin. Recenter. You can almost be a robot, you know? Try and make your motions almost mechanical. Throw to the pointer, right like that. See, I'd like to fix that little dent. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be a good boy. I'm not going to do it. Little chamois on the lip. Get the water out of the center. Put my tool back where it's supposed to be. Knife tool down the side. Even if you don't do the scraping rib on the outside, like so, just getting that knife tool down at the bottom, cleaning that wet slime off the bottom of it, really gives you a place to pick up the pot. Okay, we're going to wipe the junk off your hands. And it's nice because you can just put it right back in the bucket because it's slip. Dry your hands off on your towel. Cut your pot. Pick it up, set it off to the side. Now I'm down on the bottom. Picking it up, set it off to the side. Okay. So I hope this is a little bit more clear than mud. I hope that it makes sense. I'm going to get you a little lineup here of those that we just threw for the demo, and you can see that my first one was kind of tall, second one a little short, a little wonky, but the last three they've evened up. And so this is why it's important for you to save all of your efforts, because what's going to happen is you're going to start off and they might look like a little toadstool, but later on they're going to look great because you're going to improve with each one. Again, the important thing is don't correct your mistakes. If you flub it, cut it off, set it onto the board so you can deal with it later, but do each point. Center, open, recenter, rib. Push in with the right hand, up, first pull. Push in with the right hand, up, second pull, wooden rib, third pull. And trim the bottom and cut it off, set it aside, and just go, go, go. Just keep doing each one of those moves. Don't allow anything else to happen other than that. And don't be afraid to mush up some clay. I mean, you know, you're gonna go through 50 pounds of clay probably eventually within 2 or 3 days. You'll be making 50 of these. I literally went from being a pretty poor thrower to being able to throw within 4 or 5 days of this class that I took when I was a kid. And the pointer was introduced by Fred Olson. We didn't have that in the original scheme of things. We just had the cylinder. And everybody was floundering, and then Fred showed up and gave us the pointer idea. I went home and made one for everybody, and they all just knocked it out of the park. So give it a try.
Let's see if it'll work for you. If you do have success, or even if you don't, please comment in the bottoms. Give me any suggestions that you might think that would help people. Also, give me ideas of things that you folks would like to see that are problematic for you. I plan on going through the whole production pottery procedure and looking at how the shelves work, how throwing standing up works, what you need to do for a bat system, how to design pottery and make it marketable, how to design for packaging, how to design for shipping, how to design for utilitarian and comfort. And so there's going to be a lot of design stuff that's coming up in the future. But for right now, for the next few videos, I'm going to try and get you through the production procedure. And production's kind of a misnomer, because producing pottery is producing pottery. You have to make a lot of pottery to get good at it. And this is one way of doing it, especially if you limit what you're doing. And I think that that the advances you'll make, even if you just want to be a hobbyist, even if you only just want to produce a few pieces every week, the advances you'll make here are significant in just eliminating the frustration of trying to throw. So if this has been helpful and I've earned your subscription, please subscribe, please like, please follow us on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. And like I said in the last video, there's a pointer giveaway coming. So follow us on Instagram, and once I get the pointer made, and it's going to be a good one. These are nice pointers, but I'm going to make you one of my thrifty, nifty pointers. And we'll put it into a box and ship it off to one lucky winner. I'll put your names up on a board and I'll throw a dart at it, and whose ever name lands with the dart, you get the pointer. Goodbye, thanks much.